it's Mo. It is January 14th and I have finished my first book for the 2026 TBR Spin. The TBR Spin is a super fun booktube game that was created 3 years ago, I believe, and this is the second year that it has had this iteration, which is hosted by Sarah from Freshly Read Books. Originally, there was a game called the Booktube Spin, and that was created by Rick McDonnell. Then there was a game called the TBR Tackle, which was created by Kieran at Katie Books. Then Sarah and Jill from the Book Bully created the TBR Spin, and then Jill bowed out, and now it's just Sarah. And the way this game works is at the beginning of the year, you pick 12 books off of your TBR. It has to be a TBR that you already have, but it could be your physical TBR, it could be your digital TBR, it could be your audio TBR. And each month, Sarah spins a wheel in a live show, and there's prompts on that wheel that lead us to pick a book off of our stack. So in January, we had 12 books. Sarah spun the wheel in the end of December because the wheel always happens a little bit before the end of the previous month. And that prompt led us to choose a book off of our stack. In February, we have 11 books on our stack, and Sarah will spin a wheel at the end of January, leading us to a prompt that will lead us to pick a book off of our stack. The rules are listed down below. I made my stack in one of my Bookmas weekly vlogs, so I will also leave that video listed down below. But fear not, because I will be showing you that stack or the remainder of that stack at the end of this video. So every month, at the end of the month, Sarah spins a wheel that has a prompt on it, and she does a live show to do this. So the last weekend of the month, or a little bit before the end of the month, Sarah does this live show, and that lets us pick our new book for the next month off of our stack. It also lets us use reading sprints and the live show to read either our prior month book or our current month book or the book that we just got off the spin, maybe to catch up or maybe just be productive and read something else entirely. Sometimes when she spins the wheel, there are swaps, so you might have to swap out a book from your stack. Sometimes it's really hard to pick from your stack with the prompt, so you might have to swap out a book, but whenever a prompt is used, it's taken off the wheel and a new one is added, so there's never any doubling up on the actual prompt. In the end of December, she spun the wheel, and the prompt was to pick a book with either a word from the title or the author's name where the first letter was TBR SPIN, so TBR Spin, and I picked Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson because this had 3 letters from TBR Spin in it. My stack entirely consists of YA middle grade books and translated work, so I was excited to pick this YA work by a queer Brooklyn author. The way I do the spin is I try to make the live show if I can. I'm hoping that in 2026 I will be able to make the live show. I was luckily able to make it in December, so I'm hoping to also make it in January, and I'm hoping to finish my book before that live spin because I really like to wait until I'm done with the month's book before I see what the next prompt is. I don't want to get too excited about my next book while I'm still reading my current book. So I finished this one this morning. It is, like I said, the 14th, so I'm well ahead of schedule. I vlog all the books that I get in the TBR Spin. I try to check in with you before I finish the book, but this time I happened to finish it, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But at the end of each vlog that I do for the TBR Spin, I pick the next book with the spin. So I try to watch the spin with you. I don't know if that's always going to happen in 2026, but we will definitely pick the book together, even if I know the spin ahead of time. It's a little bit hard for me to juggle finishing the book, making sure I catch the live show, and filming the live show at the same time. But we'll see what we can do this year. But like I said, at the end, I'll pick the book with you, so you'll see my full stack. Now, so we're gonna put this one down for a second. I didn't finish all my books from 2024. So since we are quite ahead of the game, what I thought might be fun is to include the last book that I read, which I have to go back and see what the spin for that was. So I have Sarah's channel pulled up. And then I think what I'll do is I'll watch the next spin that I missed. I have 4 books. So December, November, October, September. I think the last spin that I watched and the last book that I read was for August, and I have a bunch of footage from that, so I will insert that here. But I think what would be fun is to also pick another book from the next spin, which should be September, and see what I get off of my stack and see if I can read it before the next vlog or between this vlog and that vlog. To explain in a more simple way, for the first 5 months in 2026, I plan on including one of my 2024 books that you haven't heard about yet. So rather than make extra vlogs, because I have a lot of videos and not a lot of time to edit, and there's always more videos that I want to make, I figured if we combine all the TBR Spin videos, that'll mean that I'll be reading more than one book in each video, ideally, and I will also be catching up on my 2024 TBR Spin. I like to finish each year's TBR Spin, so I definitely want to make sure that I do all the prompts for last year, as well as do all the prompts for this year. Just a reminder that any booktube games like this are just for fun. So if you DNF a book from that, you can make up rules about it, or you cannot. If you start it and don't finish it, like, that's fine. This is a challenge just to read down your TBR. This is a way to get more books off of your TBR, or the way I use it is to get certain books off my TBR, make sure certain books are being read or at least being tried throughout the year. But this is just a game. So like, if the prompts don't match perfectly, that's fine. If you want to skip a month, that's fine. You know, anything goes. It's just for fun. First things first, let's talk about Red at the Bone. I was intending to talk to you while I was reading this. It took me about a week to read this short book. It is a YA, or even it could be maybe considered like a new adult book, I think, but it is written more in a simple style YA level, I would say. And this is about Iris and Aubrey, who are young teenage boyfriend and girlfriend who end up having a baby at the young age of like 15. And the first thing we see is we see Melody, their baby, at her like coming out party, at her cotillion style quinceañera kind of party, and we read from her perspective. Subsequent perspectives are from Iris, her mother, Aubrey, her father, or her 2 grandparents who helped raise her when Iris went off to college at Oberlin. The family is very proud that their children go to college. The grandmother and grandfather went to college, Iris is going to college, and now Melody is getting ready to go to college as well. She's in the middle of high school, but she's already thinking about college and knowing that she is going to go, and so this kind of cotillion coming out party is the tradition for the children in this family, and Iris had to skip it because at the time that she would have had her quinceañera, she was pregnant. Through the different perspectives, we see the family dynamic, we see the history of all of these people, both as a family and then separately. So we see the history as it goes way back into the past of how the grandparents met, how Iris's parents met, and how Iris and Aubrey met, and subsequently how Melody was born, and then the relationship to all these people when Melody is 15. Time progresses and we see later as well. So I thought this was really interesting. I did really like the style it was written in. This is a signed copy. There's no name above the chapters, so through context, you have to decide who's talking to you in each different chapter. So like I said, the first chapter is Melody. The second chapter you have to read on to figure out who you're reading from, and then every chapter you have to do that. I think that it's very easy and it's laid out very simply of who is talking, but I think it's an interesting way, especially for a young adult book, to force you to really pay attention and your reading comprehension and your reading retention. And then also I think it's a little bit signifies how all these people's stories are interwoven, but also have a lot of similarities. So you can see a lot of similarities in the personalities of the grandmother, mother, and daughter, and of their stories and of their struggles. And you definitely get to know all these characters really well in a very short amount of time. And I really did love some of these characters. I really loved Aubrey, the dad, and his story and his backstory. I think at the ending I was a little confused because there is a little bit of a time jump just before the ending and then right at the ending. And I think some of the themes and some of the events that happen were wrapped up a little too quickly. The majority of this book is taking place during this party, then looking back. So we see maybe Iris looking at her daughter and then thinking back. And then each chapter maybe is in the past, but like the time period that has progressed in 2/3 of the book is, or almost 3/4 of the book, is still at that party. We're just learning about the past. And then the very end of the book, the very last quarter, has those time jumps. And I just think some questions weren't wrapped up carefully or as intricately as I think they should have been. There was a passage right at the end that does explain Iris's behavior throughout the book, and I think if you weren't paying attention you might miss it, or if you didn't quite understand the implications of it you might miss it. I had to think about it for a little while, and I don't know if like in a YA book you should necessarily have to like parse out what happened. I did really enjoy this. I really enjoyed Jacqueline Woodson's writing style. I really did love the character development, and I love that this was a queer story because I did not know that that was going to be true, and I didn't even know that Jacqueline Woodson is a queer woman, so I'm super excited to read more. I think I have 2 or 3 other Jacqueline Woodson books, and I will definitely continue to read more of her work. I would love to see if she did adult fiction because I think mainly she does middle grade with some YA. The books that I have lean towards the YA, but I think she is mostly a middle grade author. I'm so glad I read it for the TBR Spin because my whole idea of the TBR Spin in 2026 was to read YA books that I keep putting off. I'm just not a YA reader. I'm just not a middle grade reader that much. I don't enjoy those books as much a lot of the time, but there are certain middle grade and YA books that I love. So the TBR Spin is just the right push for me to get to do it, and I'm super happy that this was my January read. Next, let's talk about my TBR stack as of August. I don't have one of the books, and it's the book that I ended up reading in August. The first book on my stack is 8 Men by Richard Wright, which is a collection of short stories. I also had The Life of Elida Aquino, which is a slave narrative. I had The Turquoise Ledge by Leslie Marmon Silko. I had Begin Again by Eddie S. Glaude, and I had Love by Toni Morrison. Love by Toni Morrison is actually a stand-in because I'm reading Toni Morrison in publication order, and I believe the next book that I have to read by her is Beloved. So whenever a prompt fits a Toni Morrison, I'll just think about what Toni Morrison I'm reading next and see if it matches the prompt, and then I will choose that one instead of Love. I just used Love as a stand-in. The prompt for August that led me to Richard Wright's 8 Men, which is the book that I started for that month, was a book with an animal or a person on the cover, and as you can see, this has multiple people on the cover. 8 Men is a short story collection featuring 8 men. Each story features 1 man, 8 stories. I will throw you back, and I will let you see how it unfolded as I read that book. It is August 25th, and I have started my August TBR Spin book, 8 Men by Richard Wright. I was interested in reading Richard Wright because Native Son is a pivotal Black American work, and I want to eventually read that, but this was the book that I got first. 8 Men is a collection of short stories. Richard Wright was writing in the 40s, 50s, and 60s about the Black experience, about his experience as a Black man in America. The first story, The Man Who Was Almost a Man, I actually DNF. This is about a young boy who works in the fields and on a farm, and he kind of gets bullied, just not treated well by people. So he decides that what he really wants, what he really needs, is a gun to make him feel like a man and to make him feel like other people won't bully him, or that he's better than them, or that he's stronger than them. And he stumbles upon a gun for sale and he buys it. The reason I DNF that first story is because there is animal violence in it, and it's unintentional animal violence, but I couldn't handle it. I didn't want to read it. That story is only 18 pages long, and it was interesting to read. It was definitely one of those books like Their Eyes Were Watching God that it might be beneficial to read out loud or to listen to on audio. The next story is The Man Who Lived Underground, and this one was so interesting. This one's a much longer story, 64 pages, and this was about a man who is fleeing the police. He's escaped from custody because the police were beating him. These white police officers made him sign a false confession. He is fleeing for his life. He notices a sewer grate on the street being lifted up, pressure by water and air. He takes advantage of that and flees underground into the sewers. And so it is about his time living underground. It's really interesting because he finds different places underground and he's able to navigate this underground world, and he's able to sneak into different stores using like their basement and the access through the sewers. Kind of what he does with that and how he justifies some of the things he does, like taking things from the different stores and stealing food from people and things like that. And it's just really interesting, although it's quite sad at the end, but I really like that one. The next story that I read is Big Black Good Man, and this is about a, what is that called? Hotel worker in Sweden. It's not like the best hotel. They rent rooms like by the night, and there's like prostitutes and stuff, and one day a big black man comes to rent a room, and the hotel worker is, even though black people and blackness is not as prejudiced against in Sweden as in other countries, he is right away like afraid of this man because he's big, because he's black, and then kind of the journey that this Swedish hotel worker goes on with his feelings about this man and then also with the man himself. The next story is The Man Who Saw the Flood. It's about a family returning to their home that they rent or lease from white plantation owners. So it's about how there was a huge flood and they're kind of shocked to see the home standing at all, and they go back to the home and see what they can salvage. It's about how they're going to become more in debt and more indentured to the people that own the property because of this disaster, instead of, you know, them having community or having people to gather around them to support them. It's kind of about the lack of support, and that one was really good as well. Then I started reading Man of All Work, and I only got like halfway through that. I didn't mark my page. That's where I am so far, and that one is interesting so far because it's done all in dialogue, and the beginning of that story is about a young couple and they're waking up because their first baby is crying, and it's about how the man wants to take care of his wife and child. There's no speech marks, but there are these kind of dashes to denote when someone's talking, but you don't know who it is. You have to read it and glean who it is through context. So I think that one's really interesting. That one's really long though. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I felt the same way about The Man Who Lived Underground because I was like, where is this story going? Like, they're a little meandering when they're long like that, and I wonder how this one all in dialogue is going to be. I have a few more, however many more, 3 more stories after that. So when I read some more, I will let you know. It is October 1st, actually. I'm updating you because I haven't read any more of 8 Men. It's not that I don't like this. It's not that it's not good. I don't know. I just don't want to pick it up. I brought it to Ohio with me thinking that I could finish the last half of the stories. I'm about halfway through, and I figured I could finish the last half of the stories. I don't want to. I just don't want to right now. Like, I'm in a place where I want to read what I want to read, and I don't want to force myself to read something else. I don't know if it's because I was attempting a 30 and 30 this month, well, last month in September, or it was just my vibe, my reading mood, whatever. I don't want to read this. So I'm going to DNF this. I don't usually DNF my TBR Spin books, and I don't usually combine TBR Spin vlogs, but we're going to do it this time because I don't foresee myself catching up if I don't do some of this. And that's not why I'm DNFing this. I really am just DNFing this because I'm not in the mood to read it. I'm only DNFing this for now. There's nothing wrong with it. It's heavy and it's depressing, sure. Not that I don't love depressing books, but I will come back to this at some point. This was my TBR Spin book for August, I believe, so I do have my TBR Spin stack. I want to go ahead and watch the September spin and try to pick a book off of my stack that I can start reading now and either update you on in the end of this video if that makes sense, or more likely update you on in the next TBR spin video. I'm going to skip right to the spin because I'm so far behind that although I like watching the live show, I really just need to know the spin. Okay, so that actually works out well for me in a way because the September spin for TBR Spin 2025, did I say 2024 before? Oh my god. A book that's been on your TBR, your own TBR the longest. I'm gonna have to go and look, but I think it's the Toni Morrison. So let me go check. Yes, Beloved is the oldest book off my stack on the TBR spin. I really do not like this cover. I can't wait to find another copy of this. This is the whole reason that I wanted to read her work in publication order, because I am very intimidated by this book. I'm glad that I don't necessarily have to finish it this month, that I can finish it whenever I want within these TBR spin videos, because I'm very intimidated by it. I love Toni Morrison's work. Maybe I'll fly through this like I sometimes do with Morrison books and come back to you by the end of this video. More likely I will talk about this in my next TBR spin video, or even the next one if I have to. But we can now take Love off of our stack, and so this is our remaining stack. I will come back to you when Sarah does her spin and we will pick the next book, our February TBR Spin 2026 book. Let me know if you're participating in the TBR Spin 2026. It is January 25th, and I see that Freshly Read Books has started her TBR Spin and Sprints live show. I don't know what time this started going on, but it seems to still be live. I have not started reading Beloved yet. I don't think I'm going to spend a lot of time on the actual sprints, but it's fun to be able to pop on, say hi to everybody, and pick my book. So I wanted to talk about the books that are on my TBR Spin list. Even though it's January, we are picking for February, so we've only read one book, so I have 11 books on my stack. I mentioned it before, but this stack is compiled of young adult fiction and translated works. So I have Monkey, A Journey to the West, the classic Chinese tale of pilgrimage and adventure retold by David Cardian. Pedro Paramore by Juan Rulfo, which is translated by Margaret Sayers Pendon. The Woman in the Dunes by Kobo Abe. This was translated from the Japanese by E. Dale Saunders. Atlantic Hotel by João Gilberto Noel. This was translated by Adam Morris. My Documents by Alejandro Zambra, and this was translated from the Spanish by Megan McDowell. Then I have Five Midnights by Anne de Villa Cardinal. Blonde Roots by Bernardine Evaristo. God Dies by the Nile by Nawal Al-Sadawi. This was translated from Arabic by Sharif Hatada. The Floating World by Cynthia Kodo-Hata. Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. And How Do You Live Now by Genzaburo Yoshino, and this was translated from the Japanese by Bruno Nowinski. So those are my 11 TBR Spin books. Now let's pull up the spin and pick a book for February.
I mean, I did an Art Spiegelman, so.
Sarah mentioned that she didn't put the swaps on, so there's no swap possible for this month, which is fine. I like having swaps in the TBR Spin, certainly, but I'm happy with my list right now, so I think swaps are better for like later in the year anyway, when you're like sick of your list already. And the spin was author you haven't read from before, so that's like most everyone on this list. I have not read from Yoshino. I have not read from Jason Reynolds. I have not read from Kodo-Hata. I have read from Nawal Al-Sadawi, so I won't include that one. I have not read any Bernardine Evaristo. I have not read any Cardinal. I have not read any Zambra. I have not read any Noel. I have not read any Abe. I have not read any Rulfo, and I have not read from this author either. So that only eliminates one book from my stack. stack. Do I want to just pick a book? I could do a couple of things. I could pick a book. I have this TBR spinner or picker that has TBR prompts on it that I really like to use. I think it's called like My TBR or something. I will leave that listed down below. It's a great way when you're faced with something like this and you want to spin again, or you want to have a prompt that's going to lead you in more of a specific direction. Maybe I'll do that. My first impulse is to read 5 Midnights, but I feel like if I'm not interested in it, I'll just put it down instead of like picking another book in a timely manner. So maybe let's go to that TBR game. But I do really like this game, and I've used it before on the TBR Spin when something like this happens. It's called Hey Reader. So TBR dot Hey Reader .me. Is it still there? It's not coming up. I don't know. Maybe it's gone. Could it be gone? Oh no. Let's try it on my phone. Ooh, no. It's just giving me a blank. Well, real-time problems. Let's see if we just Google random reading prompts if something else comes up. The TBR machine. I feel like I've used that one before too. So the TBR machine I have also used before. Let's use the TBR machine. So it says, press the randomize button below. You will be presented with a random reading prompt. You can use that prompt to select a book from your TBR. Read a book with a protagonist who is a person of color. Well, okay, that's not super helpful because all of these books feature people of color, because that's how I always pick my TBR spin list. So let's try again. Read a nonfiction book. Also, no. Read a book by a female author. That's narrowing it down. So this one, and this one. Okay, so we narrowed it down to these 3. Let's do one more prompt. Read a book written by an author from a different country than you. They're all American. Read a book with blue on the cover. No blue. Yes, blue. No blue. Okay. That took a long time. But the next book we are going to be reading is Blonde Roots by Bernadine Evaristo. Again, this is, I think, a YA or upper middle grade book. Bernadine Evaristo's debut novel, which I did not know. And I believe that this is like a reimagining of history where the white people were enslaved and the black people were rulers, or at least where the higher up people in society were black and the lower people in society were white. So I think that'll be interesting. It looks pretty sparse. The font is not huge, but there's not like a lot of words on every page. Here's a map, which is cool. I'm excited to try it. And then I think because I'm reading like YA specifically, if I decide for some reason I don't want to read this and I can DNF it, I'll try to pick up one of the other books that kind of sort of fit in most of the prompts that I've gotten, or swap out a book similar like YA kind of book. But we will definitely give this a try for our February TBR Spin pick. Let me know if you're participating in the TBR Spin. Let me know if you kind of theme your TBR stacks the way I do. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!